So it looks like the food riots may begin in about 2 weeks or so, because if the government shutdown continues, then the USDA is reportedly going to not only run out of money to disperse through the federal SNAP program, which is the food stamp program, but also they may lack the authority to disperse funds. And so numerous states are already declaring that they will not be able to disperse any more SNAP money, food stamp money on the debit cards at the grocery store, beginning November 1st. Now, you've probably heard the saying that every society is 9 meals away from anarchy. Well, if that holds true, it means right around, November 5th or so, or 6th, it depends on how much food people have in the cupboard, people are going to start to panic. Well, actually, I think the panic will begin the very day the food stamps stop working. The food riots, should they begin, they will start looting the retailers, obviously, because they do that anyway. But this time they're going to be starving. So they're going to loot the retailers. First, it'll be the local convenience stores, and then it'll be the grocery stores. And you may now realize why so many grocery stores have moved out of the left-wing cities. They've closed down and left. Why? Because they know what's coming. They know that massive civil unrest is coming. And you see, the left loves this kind of thing because it gives them a cover for the left-wing uprising that they want to stage anyway, because they want to overthrow Trump. Not that they would succeed at that, but in some of their minds, they think they can. And a lot of left-wing lawmakers, Democrats, are openly talking about fighting in the streets. Well, you get a bunch of hungry, welfare recipients in the inner cities whose food gets cut off. They're going to join the riots. Then you have a much larger left-wing army of angry, obese people who are, protesting the Trump administration. This also benefits the Trump administration, if you think about it, because it gives them the ability to move in more troops into the cities, which Trump has openly talked about that, and using Chicago as a training ground for the U.S. military, which set off alarm bells everywhere. But if Trump wants to move into the cities and have a kind of local martial law situation, this is the perfect way to make that happen. As soon as the civil unrest breaks out, Trump can dispatch federal troops and say, well, they're there to protect federal buildings and federal property. And the courts have upheld that the dispatching of even military troops to left-wing cities. So this is how Trump is going to occupy those cities. And then as the Civil War gets activated, which has long been the plan, it's called the Podesta plan, then Trump has already positioned troops in the locations where they're going to need to be to fight on behalf of the United States government in this coming civil war. You've seen many insurance companies leave California, like State Farm in particular, but others have been canceling policies or refusing to renew existing policies and absolutely refusing to write new policies in the state of California. And when I was first covering this, we were asking, well, what do they see coming? What is it that they're anticipating? And the answer should be kind of obvious. It's this. It's a civil war or a war scenario of some kind with massive property destruction. And remember that Trump has already officially designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Whether or not that carries weight in law is another question. Technically, there's really not such a thing as a domestic terrorist. There are enemy combatants that are in the country. So essentially, Trump is designating them as enemy combatants. Now, he did that, a few weeks ago. So that gives him the correct posture to be able to go to war with the radical left when the food riots begin. Because Trump can just say, oh, well, everybody that's rising up right now, they're all Antifa. And that might be true. Antifa is going to have a strong presence in the food riots, I would imagine. So Trump could just say, well, they're terrorists, and he can order the military just open fire on them, you know? Rules of engagement are now freedom to fire because they're terrorists. You see how this all lines up? And then you're going to have massacres. If this continues in this direction, obviously, you'll have massacres of Americans and illegals in the blue cities. And then that will enrage the left even more, and they'll rise up against the Trump administration, try to overthrow it, and there'll be a massive war, and then Trump will deploy the U.S. military in cities across the country and establish martial law. So get ready for all of this. It's going to get interesting.
Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Salutations to my fellow laborers pushing this truth, and shalom to the saints. And the title of this lesson is going to be Facial Scans for SNAP Benefits. Facial scans for SNAP benefits. As we know in 2 Corinthians 2:11, we are warned not to be ignorant of Satan's devices. And so this digital plantation that the beast is setting up is being implemented strategically all across the four corners of the earth. And in order to convince people to be willing participants in their own enslavement, different tactics are being used. In 2009, the country of India rolled out their biometric beast system. I think it's called Aadhaar or something like that. Okay? And there was very little pushback, as far as I can tell. Now, a couple years ago in Nigeria, they wanted to bring about a digital currency, which of course goes hand in hand with your digital ID. And the people were not going for it. So the government backed off, then came up with a new paper currency, retrieved all the old currency notes. Then the people came to find out that they never printed enough of the new notes. And so the people were coerced into accepting this new digital form of payment. Right? Now we see that in the countries of Belize, Barbados, Jamaica, and St. Vincent, they have recently come together in an enhanced form of their CARICOM relationship, where they are going to allow any national of any of these countries to freely move between any of these different countries without need for a work permit or visas or anything like that. But as far as I know, in order to participate in that program, you are going to have a digital ID. And then in the UK, where Starmer is trying to push forth his digital ID for everyone who wants to work, is now receiving a little bit of pushback. So he's starting out with issuing this digital ID called the Brit card to the veterans. So the obvious tactic is to onboard as many of the ignorant people into this new beast system so that you can eventually exclude those who are not part of it. You see that? So once you get a certain percentage of the population to adopt these changes, just like we saw in 2020, 2021, 2022, you know, the so-called medicine started out as being optional. But then once they got enough people to take it, they started to exclude you from society in order to coerce you. And so the title of this lesson is Facial Scans for SNAP Benefits. There's that old saying that goes, never let a good crisis go to waste. There's also what you call the Hegelian dialectic, which is where you create a problem to implement the solution that you desire, which you would not have been able to implement had the problem not been created in the first place. So by the federal government suspending these SNAP programs and laying off all of these federal workers and putting these people in financial straits, it's going to be much easier for them to say, okay, we have a problem here. We are going to turn back on your SNAP benefits and your Section 8 housing and your universal basic income, perhaps. But you need to have a digital ID because there's too much fraud in the old system, and we had so-called illegal immigrants getting benefits, and we want to make sure, we know who you are, where you are, what you are, in order for us to help you. And a starving people and a homeless person is not going to be able to stand up against that the same way a person who has a roof over their head and has a full belly is going to be able to stand up against it, man. Like Henry Kissinger said, to control nations, you control the oil, but to control people, you control the food. You see that? But man shall not live by bread alone, like it says in Deuteronomy 8:3, Matthew 4:4, and Luke 4:4. And Isaiah 33:6 says that wisdom and knowledge is going to be our stability in these coming times, man. This is Isaiah 55 from the top. It says, Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and ye that hath no money, come ye buy and eat. Yeah, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. You see that? So, this bread that is being referred to here is the bread of life. This water that is being referred to here is living water. This is what truly sustains us. Okay? And this is what is going to keep us stable in these coming times, knowing that our help cometh from the Most High, not from the supermarket, and definitely not from the government. This is Isaiah 30 from the top. It says, woe to the rebellious children. That means death and destruction. It says, woe to the rebellious children, saith the Most High, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt, aka America, and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. You see that? So America has always been this golden cup in the Most High's hand to be used to, in part, deceive the nations. And that's why he told his people to come out of her in Revelation 18. But most of our people trust in that place, man. Oh, I have a federal job, and those are the most stable jobs. But now they're coming to find out that those are the least stable jobs. You see that? They trust in America because, America has everything you need, right? But check this out. This is 2 Ezra 16. I'm going to start with verse 19. It says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Behold, Victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. You see that? So, the government has to get things under control before the real famine kicks in, which is, I think, early next year. All right? Because remember, America expelled all of its farm workers. Okay? The people who pick and tend to your crops. And we're not going to see the real fallout of that until early next year. So the government can't wait until that time to put measures in place for food rationing and all of these things. It's often said that Western so-called civilization, or any civilization for that matter, is only 9 meals away from total anarchy. People are accustomed of eating breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner, having snacks throughout the day. When all of that is taken away, it's going to create the confusion that they desire. And that's the problem that they are creating in order to bring about a solution. And the solution is going to be biometric face scans for SNAP benefits. And everyone is going to need SNAP so-called benefits because the price of food is about to skyrocket. All of this is a part of their plan to make everyone dependent on the government to put food in your mouth. That's the plan. Obviously, because they want your soul. And they are going to be successful in getting the vast majority of people to go along with this. And once they have all your biometric data, then it's just one step closer to being able to insert a chip up inside of you, man. There will be no more precursors to the MOTB at that point. Because like we've gone into many times for years, note that we didn't just start talking about this a couple days ago. Like the whole world seems to suddenly realize, oh my goodness, they want to make everyone get a digital ID. We were talking about this when it was still a conspiracy theory. You check it out and you could search on my channel and you'll see. Matter of fact, I'm going to try to put links to all the lessons that we've done on this over the years. Okay? And I realized that my channel is shadow banned because for my subscription list to be over 800 people and my videos only to get, the views that they get shows that it's being shadow banned. But that's okay because we're not out here for the masses of people anyway. And this is Yahawah sham Yahawashi's work. So he is the one who is going to lead whoever needs to hear these messages to these messages. But this beast system is coming. It is coming. And you cannot escape it. The most you can do is gain an extra 5 or 10 minutes by being as self-sufficient as you can. But ultimately, there's going to come a point when you need the system. Whether it be for food, health care, dental care, medical care, utilities, communication, transportation, accessing the internet, everything is going to be tied into your compliance to the system. And you worshiping the beast in order to survive. That's how they're going to set it up. And then you're going to have to decide what your life is worth. And if your life is worth more than your soul. Revelation 3:10 talks about the hour of temptation that shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell on the earth. What is this all about? This is a test to see where your allegiance lies and what you value in this life. And you can't cheat on this test, man. You're going to once and for all have to declare where you stand and where you put your trust. And if you will be on the correct side, you're going to have to come out from among them and be ye separate and touch not the unclean thing. And that's pursuant to 2 Corinthians 6:17. You're not going to follow the multitude to do evil, like it talk about in Exodus 23:2. And then you're going to have to forego all the things that society provides for you. And all the things that you think you own, including your possessions and your house and your car and whatever else you got. Like it talk about in Luke 14:33. Let's get that. It says in Luke 14:33, the words of Yahawashi Hamashiach. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. So this system is coming. And the Most High is who is sending this whole thing. This test. All right? This hour of temptation. So there's no stopping it. So ignoring this is not going to be any kind of strategy. All right? Without faith in Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And that faith has to be given to you by the Heavenly Father. And that's pursuant to Wisdom of Solomon 3:14, which refers to faith as a special gift. So in closing, let us pray like the apostles did in Luke 17:5 and ask the Most High through his only begotten Son to increase our faith. Shalom.